Hi, I've been reading Brothers Karamazov and wanted to make a quick video about some thoughts on the first chapter of the book. In the first chapter of the book, you come across a character called Adelaida. She intrigued me a lot. The narrator says Adelaida is somebody who's driven by the Romantic movement. The Romantic movement came around the early 19th century, which valued feelings above traditions or reason. What makes that interesting for Adelaida's choice is, even though Adelaida is a woman of a higher social rank, she marries somebody who's of a much lower social rank called Fyodor, which surprised a lot of people because Fyodor is pretty much a scoundrel, as we will see later in the novel. And as soon as Adelaida marries Fyodor, she actually gets very upset. The narrator says she despised him. So why would she do that? The reason is Adelaida married Fyodor not because she actually loves him, but because he stood for an idea. And the idea was to rebel against her parents. And this again is a romantic sentiment of rebelling against the previous generation, because the Romantic movement itself came out of this space of rebellion against the Enlightenment values. Anytime people base their love out of a value for an idea as against the value for a person, that choice becomes inauthentic. She marries Fyodor, but then she feels that she doesn't really love him and despises him. Even though she has a son with him, eventually she leaves the son and elopes with a priest, and as she goes on, she eventually dies in this kind of pursuit of this romantic sentiment, where in some ways it becomes a form of chasing after the wind, which is actually a phrase from the book of Ecclesiastes, which Solomon wrote, that sometimes our pursuit in life becomes a form of chasing after the wind. How can our love be consistent so that it's not a chasing after the wind? And I think a place to start is to value other people not for the ideas they represent, but for who they are. To engage with people not from an ideological space, but from a relational space. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon actually says, "Making books there is no end, and much study leads to weariness of the flesh." What he's talking about is there can be any number of different books on any number of different ideas, ideologies, so to speak, are dime a dozen. And then he goes on to say, "Let us hear the conclusion of this whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." So what he's doing here is he's shifting away from looking at life from this ideological perspective to looking at life from a relational perspective. This shift to looking at life from a relational perspective is important, especially because in today's world, you could look at any different topic and get any number of different ideas. You could go to ChatGPT and get any number of ideas about any number of different things. One day you believe this and you want to pursue that, the next day you want to pursue something else, and the next day you want to pursue something else, and there is no consistency in that. And that's where pursuing our life from a point of relational rootedness is important. In the movie Sleepless in Seattle, the Tom Hanks character says he fell in love with Meg Ryan character because it felt like coming home. Being in love with her felt like coming home. And I think that kind of rootedness is what a way of engaging with people from a relational standpoint gives us. When we engage with people in life from just a purely ideas perspective, sometimes it just creates a sense of inconsistency where we follow one and another and never know what does it mean to be relationally rooted and rejoice in that space. I think in some ways this is what St. Augustine talked about in the Confessions when he said, "Vast are you, O God, we are restless until we find our rest in you." So, ideologies are dime a dozen, but rest comes from relationships of love. That's what I have to share for today. Until I see you in another video. Hopefully I'll do another video as I continue reading Brothers Karamazov about some of my thoughts on that. Until I see you then, bye for now.